So President Trump's crime crackdown is already seeing results as he deploys the National Guard and federal agents to Washington, D.C. Yes, our nation's capital. He wants to make it safe again.
Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with the details. Hey, Lucas.
Well, good morning, Ainsley. The National Guard has arrived in the nation's capital under President Trump's orders to fight crime and reduce homelessness. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says this ramped-up presence should last for about a month.
As for the timing, we will reevaluate and reassess and make further decisions after this 30-day period is up. But within these 30 days, our entire focus is making sure that this is the most efficient operation possible and that we are removing as many criminals from the streets.
At the Justice Department, the newly confirmed U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, was asked about violent crime being down in the nation's capital 26% over the past year.
It's never enough. This changed. This changed. It's never enough. You tell these families crime has dropped. You tell the kid who was just beat the hell and back with a severe concussion and a broken nose, crime is down. No, that falls on deaf ears. And my ears are deaf to that. And that's why I fight the fight.
And federal law enforcement agents are also assisting FBI Director Kash Patel, posting some of the results on the first big push of FBI supporting Donald Trump's initiative to make D.C. safe again. FBI reported 10 arrests with partners. These include 1 arrest for a search warrant for a prior murder charge, multiple unlawful possession of firearms, multiple outstanding warrants for DUI, and 1 arrest for violation of a restraining order. Now, President Trump has ordered 800 National Guard soldiers to help local law enforcement patrol the streets. And that D.C. police force is short about the same number of cops right now, guys. Now, the head of D.C.'s police union says he doubts that crime has come down as much as city officials say, guys.
Hey, Lucas, I'm just wondering, are we going to be able to get the troops into the working class areas, the lower income areas, not just in the areas where the Smithsonian is and the White House is located?
Well, that's what officials are saying, Brian. They're going to put them into Southeast D.C., Berry Farms housing project. They're going to be in those neighborhoods, but there's no question this initial push, people wanted to see them on the mall.
Yep. All right. Thanks so much.
So Baltimore, Maryland, is about an hour outside of D.C., and the residents there are complaining of all the crime as well and what can be done about it. And the Baltimore Sun interviewed several residents in different neighborhoods. One was from Curtis Bay, several were from Morrell Park, and they're all complaining because they would love to move because crime has gotten so bad, they say. Drug deals on the streets in front of their houses, but they aren't able to because who's going to buy their house when they're used to be these gorgeous neighborhoods where movies were playing in the park, where picnics were outside for the children, where people could sit on their front porch in their rocking chairs, according to this article, but they can't do that anymore.
So it's part of, to your point, Ainsley, people can't sell. And then there are people that just don't have the money to. They can't move. And I always tell people that when they talk about liberal cities and New York going so far to the left, why won't people just move? Well, they just don't have the poor. And so that leads us to this headline in the Baltimore Sun. Trapped in Baltimore. Trap crime, drugs, and high taxes push residents to the brink. And that's what a lot of folks in the area are talking about right now. We've covered it for years. I've covered the broken education system there. I've covered the crime there. I've covered the broken families there for years. And although you've seen some of the numbers go down, again, just like Washington, D.C.
Violent crime has gone down there.
They'll put points of that. But if you look at some studies, they're number 2 when it comes to murders, Brian.
Right. So why are people talking about Baltimore? Because the president brought it up, and he said some of the cities that are just gone to hell, one of them is Baltimore. Oakland is another. And there's many more. Chicago's another. So he's saying, you know, maybe Baltimore is where I'll go next. He needs permission from the governor, who's going to be on our show later. But what is the situation in Baltimore? So the Baltimore Sun sent a reporter out. One of the anecdotes, this information, a 77-year-old woman from Curtis Bay who asked to remain anonymous due to threats she received from drug dealers on her block, compared the morning drug traffic to fast food drive-through. When a real estate agent assessed her property about a month ago, she said the agent told her, can't sell this house with that, referring to the 10 or 12 people involved in the drug market loitering across the street. I'm going to get hurt one day. I know I am. So I was watching this interview on CNN yesterday, and Jake Tapper did a great job because The mayor there is saying like everything's great in Baltimore. I don't know what President Trump is talking about. He has no idea how much better things are. So listen to this exchange.
I'm sure you read the article in the Baltimore Sun yesterday talking about how so many Baltimore residents don't recognize their neighborhoods anymore. What do you say to those residents of Baltimore who may think that citing falling crime statistics glosses over some of the harsher day-to-day realities and needs that they have to their lives in Baltimore, need for things to change even further in terms of just regular drug trafficking?
Yeah, so we're only having that discussion because the president is having that discussion. And this, I want to be very clear. I didn't read the Baltimore Sun article. I don't read it because they're a part of the president's propaganda machine.
So Jake Tapper did come back and say, look, I know people at the Baltimore Sun, they're not the president's propaganda machine. That might be the editorial page on a couple.
You're not talking about it because the only reason we're talking about it is because the president did. What about listening to your constituents, the people who live in Baltimore? The 77-year-old woman who's almost 80 years old, who used to be able to go to these picnics with her kids in the park, be able to have outdoor movies with her kids, and now she has drug dealers, 10 or 12 of them, right outside of her front door across the street. That lady shouldn't have to be forced to move, but now she wants to move. But you shouldn't have crime in your neighborhood forcing you to move. You should only move if you get a new job in another place. You shouldn't be forced out of your neighborhood that used to be clean. And she says that at the end of the year, she's considering just selling her property to an investor, probably for a low number, and then buying a mobile home in Delaware.
The problem is the mayor, and we're going to have the governor on later on, and I wanted to have a discussion with him about this. They can't have it both ways. I think the governor dedicated $40 million to the crime problem to hire more law enforcement in Baltimore. The feds have been already involved with Baltimore. Sure, the numbers have come down, but when they were at record highs, and you're still number 2 on the list, there's clearly a problem. Every time they get some type of editorial, which is not very often in liberal cities, then they blame the messenger. But they're speaking for the majority of the people that are in the town. I heard Joe Scarborough yesterday said that some of his people in his inner circle who are liberals, who are part of the press, are willing to talk about it behind the scenes, but they don't want to go on air to discuss the crime problem in D.C.
They do feel the danger. And by the way, and you could appreciate this, evidently they looked at the stats of D.C. and crime going down. Do you know what they left out? Felony and aggravated assault. They just didn't put it in. That's violent crime.
Of course it is.
How do you leave it out? And plus, we know they're messing with the numbers because 2 guys have been suspended for messing with the crime stats. So again, we have to believe the numbers, and then we have the information. By the way, if I'm mayor of Baltimore, I'd make headlines today by saying, if the president can help me out, I'm about 1,000 cops
That's
short.
what D.C. is saying.
That's what I would say. Help me out. Because he could always say it's not his fault. He took over and just say, look, and by the way, if you're going to be interviewed on national television, put a tie on, right? Get a collared shirt, put a tie on. You're representing your city. Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.